Welcome to the Life's Best Medicine Podcast, where we are finding hope and healing one episode at a time. No appointment needed, no rubber gloves, and no coping. Just a healthy dose of life lessons to help equip you for this wild journey we call life. Hey everyone, this is a friendly reminder that we are here for entertainment purposes only. We may not even be that entertaining at times, but this is not medical advice. Talk to your doctor, check with your healthcare professionals before making any lifestyle changes or medicine changes. What we're talking about is our clinical experience and what we've seen. And so if you really want our advice, you can consult us. You can actually consult me as a doctor, or you can consult my guest and get all your questions answered. But we can't give free medical advice because we can't pay our bills with that, but we can help to educate you a bit and allow you to think a little bit. And always reach out to your medical professional before making any lifestyle changes. Thank you. Hey, everyone. This year is flying by. I think every year flies by, but this one has been really quick. We're in August now. I just want to thank our sponsors for bringing all these great episodes. Today is no exception. This is a powerful, important episode. So I just thank you guys, everyone, for listening, everyone who's been supporting us and for listening, for tuning in, because there's so many other things you can listen to. But I would like to thank Keto Mojo. They're my go-to device for checking ketones and glucose levels. And they do a lot of great research. They're really pushing the envelope with some of the science, and also just really helping to support practices like mine and patients like you. And so, Keto Mojo, keto-mojo.com. They have great information, great videos online, but it really helps us to track our ketones, and we get excited when they start going up, and kind of realize we have to make some changes when they drop down. So if we want to be in fat burning mode, the best tool we have is Keto Mojo. So I thank them for their support. And also Health Code, Ben Bickman and brother Joel, who from this podcast. They're doing some great stuff. Their nutritional advice is excellent. Their life advice is outstanding, and they're doing just great work. So I'm so honored to have them as a partner in the podcast to bring these stories to you. So Get Health is their website, gethlth.com. Met Health is a discount code. Just because me, it's METHEALTH. Doesn't matter if it's capital or not, but just thank you, and please buy stuff from these guys. They really do support us, and they've been the backbone of this podcast. So they keep us going. They keep bringing these stories for you, and they let me just get up here and yammer on or whatever I do here. So thank you. Have a great day and enjoy this episode. Hello and welcome back to the Life's Best Medicine Podcast. I think this is a really, really important episode. This is someone I've had on before, Eranda. Eranda, welcome back, man.
Hi, Brian. It's an honor to speak to you again. It's been a couple of years.
Yeah. So people, go back and listen to his first episode. We talk about life and low carb and what matters and all that kind of stuff. And he reached out to me, and he's talking on a topic that's really a tough topic, family stuff and abuse and what it's like growing up in an abusive home and these kind of things. And also it's a story of redemption and strength and going through hard stuff. So I don't want to give you too much of a head start, but Eranda, tell us your story, man. It's so awesome to have you back.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. So I guess June this year, literally last month, something happened that I've been waiting for my entire life. I'm 46 years old now, and I've been waiting for this for that long. And my sister's been waiting for this for 47 years, and my mum has been waiting for this for most of her life. She's 74 now, and she's finally kind of summoned up the courage to leave a very abusive and violent marriage. And it's a really difficult thing to experience, and it's a really difficult thing to grow up with, because just to give you an idea, kind of the earliest I remember is when I was about 4 or 5, and my sister was maybe 5 or 6, and that was kind of an everyday reality for us. So and it's I mean, my mum, it's this conversation is really about three really extraordinary women and how they've impacted my life. So first of all, my mum, kind of the wonderful person and the bravest person I know. My sister, who's got the biggest heart of anybody that I know. And then the love of my life, my wife, Ruth. She's the most wonderful person, and how they've impacted me. And it is a story of redemption, because it's really never too late. It's never too late. My mum's 74, and she's decided, I want more from life than I've experienced. And she's finally got to that point when she's thought enough is enough. Because if she'd stayed in her marriage, I'm really sad to say this, but if she'd stayed with my father, it would have killed her, for sure, because she suffered multiple fractures, multiple wounds that have left defensive wounds, a lot of really severe bruising. And the story really starts in 1948. So I'm going back a bit. So that's the year that my mum was born. And I think she's had a hard life. She's had a really hard life, because she was the third child in her family. So she has two older sisters, one of whom has passed away. But the really sad thing, and what really set her up to be a victim of abuse later on in life, was her own mother rejected her. I don't know why. Maybe sort of her third child, she really wanted a boy, or I don't know why, but her mother rejected her and was really cruel to her. Her two elder sisters were really mean to her, and I think it's not an exaggeration to say that she was abused by her mother and her two sisters, and it got so bad. Her father was really the only one in her family who loved her at the time, and the solution he came up with, which wasn't great, was to send her away to boarding school. And she did. She's really smart. My mum is super, super smart. I mean, she's a doctor, and becoming a doctor in Sri Lanka is really, really hard, because at the time she was growing up, there were only 2 medical schools in the entire country, and Sri Lanka's probably at the time had a population of like 15-16 million people, and medicine is really, really hard to get into. And she decided that's what she wanted to do, maybe not for the right reasons. It was kind of it's partly to gain approval from her family, her mother and her sisters especially, who always rejected her. And sadly, that's kind of what put her on a collision course with my father, who's also a doctor. So they met in hospital. So they met in hospital as colleagues, and so they would have got married around 1974, around that kind of time. And I think it's tough, because she thought initially that she'd found a kind, loving, caring man, but I don't know when it started exactly, but sometime after my sister and I were born, when we were still really small, he turned abusive and violent. And we grew up with it, and it was something that we never talked about, and it impacted both of us. Obviously my mum was impacted the most, but as a 5-year-old boy and a 6-year-old girl, sort of some of our first memories are about seeing our father. Sort of, for whatever reason, he did it in front of us, which I've never really understood. So it was tough, and I understand this now after lots and lots of counseling, that I kind of zoned out. I learned to, the present moment was just too difficult to deal with. So I kind of zoned out, and that's profoundly impacted my ability to relate to people at a very basic level. Kind of, you know, I was really shy, painfully shy growing up. Found it really difficult to make friends, really difficult to keep friends. And later on in life, I found it really difficult to form relationships of any sort, in terms of romantic relationships, working relationships, friendships. All of that stuff was really hard for me. And life's been hard for my sister as well, because she's been profoundly impacted by our kind of childhood experiences. And 1989 was a key turning point, because we were in Sri Lanka, my sister, myself, mum and dad, and sort of dad made the decision that, sort of because of the political situation in Sri Lanka, that we should come to the UK. In 89, he came to the UK, and my sister, myself, and my mum were in Sri Lanka for like almost a year before we followed. And that was the first time in my life that I'd been separated, that my sister, myself, and my mum had been separated from my dad. And we had a break from that constant threat of when is the next episode going to happen. Because from the outside, people saw two doctors and two bright kids who are doing well at school. From the outside, if you look at our photo albums as a family, we've got all these pictures of us on holiday or just doing normal things, all these happy smiling faces. You never really see from the outside what was actually happening. And in 89, we had this break. I was about 12. My sister would have been about 13. And it really gave me a break to really think about things. And then in 1990, when we came here, so this was around the time of the first Iraq war, we came to the UK, we came to Wales, and then I had this big confrontation with my father. And, you know, I was 13 years old and I was facing up to a grown man. And I told him that what he was doing was wrong. And I said, literally, it's illegal. This is domestic violence. This is a criminal offense. You are a criminal. You know, I wasn't shouting, I wasn't swearing. And it took all my courage just to keep it together for that conversation. And when I'm angry or upset, I can be very cold and clinical. And I was very harsh when I spoke to my father. I was very harsh. I wasn't swearing or anything like that, but it was very cold and cutting what I said to him. And I told him, you are not to touch our mother again. And he listened. Or I thought he'd listen, because from 1990 onwards, neither myself or my sister saw my father hit our mother or abuse our mother. So, and we both thought, when we left home to pursue our own careers, for university, we both thought that, okay, he's mellowing now. Maybe he's not the nicest. He could be nicer to mum, but he's not actually abusing her. But we always had that uncertainty in our minds. And
Well, you knew his character. You knew his character,
Yeah,
and you look
yeah,
and you're like, it's hard to believe that changed, especially when you see that at a young age, not even hiding it from you when you're 5 years old.
yeah.
And a couple questions for you along this line. Was alcohol a factor in this?
That's the weird thing. Never. My father doesn't really drink. I mean, he drinks occasionally, but every single time I remember him abusing my mother, he was stone cold sober.
And was it after like a stressful day at job? And being a doctor is, I can vouch for this. It's a stressful job.
Yeah.
And I think there's so much in this story that rings true. Is that it's not about being uneducated, right? You have a mom who's
No.
a doctor, dad's who's a doctor. He knows
Yeah.
better,
No.
and you
No.
look and you go, "Gosh, what happened?" And my question would be, do you know anything about what his upraising was, what his family situation was to bring him to be that kind of person?
Yeah. That's a really good question, Brian, because I think on his side of the family, there's definitely something going on in terms of mental health. Because so I think, I don't know, this is guesswork on my part, that when he was small, he must have suffered some form of family abuse. He has spoken about, he's left-handed. Both my parents are left-handed, and he has spoken about someone in the family trying to force him to be right-handed. Because in Sri Lanka, especially going back, my father was born in 1939, and culturally in Sri Lanka, the left hand is kind of viewed as a dirty hand.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense. Probably doesn't make sense, but culturally,
no, it makes sense because you eat your food with the right hand and then you wipe yourself with the left hand, right? You don't use the same hand for both. Yes,
exactly. So he what I suspect is, like, his family, one person in particular who was, I think, a paternal aunt, I think, really took him to task and tried to force him to be right-handed when he's left-handed. And she would have abused him physically in terms of hit him. She would have berated him. All those types of things would have been happening. And to this day, I think my father can use his right hand much better than most left-handed people, to the extent that he can write quite well, I think, with his right hand, even though he's left-handed. So I think that would have had a profound impact. But I think his father, I think, was quite an angry person. His oldest brother is quite an angry person. And then there's definitely something going on that side of the family, because one of my first cousins recently kind of told me at a family wedding that her daughter had needed counseling because she grew up with an angry mother. And she, sort of, I won't go into too much detail, but there's definitely something going on with my father's side of the family, and it's to do with a basic inability to process difficult feelings in a healthy way.
How about stepping back in those times? Was there a time when, I mean, do you remember your dad being tender and kind and loving on you and playing, things like that? There were times like that too, right?
Yeah. So exactly.
And a tenderness towards your mom and your sister.
100%. So my dad is a very charismatic, gregarious man. I mean, he can hold he can hold a room in terms of their attention. He's really funny. He's really, really funny. He's really, really clever. He can tell a story, and he's absolutely charming. He is, like, so much fun to be around. And he was an amazing dad in a lot of ways, because he read to us. He read to us as children. The reason I read so much and my sister reads so much is because of my dad. And he did give us a lot. And he's a super smart guy. He's really funny. He's really clever. And he was very affectionate as a father. and he showed affection towards all of us. But then there was this other side of him, and it was almost like he was bottling it up inside himself, and it would get to a certain point where he couldn't hold it in any longer, and it would just erupt. And
was it like your family was walking on eggshells, like what mood's he gonna be when he gets home today?
Exactly. We could never relax. And I've talked to my mother about this, and she said, like, she could never really be herself because she didn't know when it would next, she would next be, well, attacked, really, or
It would be like out of the blue. It's not like dinner got messed up or something like that. It could just be that he comes in, he's in a mood, and you can sense it. You can sense it when he walks in. You think, oh no, here it comes, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And it was like walking on eggshells, because it was almost kind of a relief when something happened, because we knew, oh, okay, we've got a few weeks when we have the nice version of him.
And then when he was gone that year, you realize, oh my goodness, the tension in the house is gone. It sounds like
we felt relaxed, we felt safe, and it really gave me pause, and it gave me a chance to really think about. I always knew it was wrong, right? Because even as a 5-year-old child, it's wrong.
You're taught not to hit your sister. You're taught these things too, And that's why it's so hard. Someone you respect and you love, and that's funny, and you see him like that, and at work, all the people respect him and look up to him and say he's a great guy, and you're sitting there going, well, there's more to the story.
Because the easiest thing in the world for me to do, and the laziest thing for me to do, it would be to judge my father and just say he's just all bad. But that's not true. He has done amazing things for us, for my sister, for me, and obviously being a doctor, he's helped so many people.
I have to ask, because it's bugging me, I'm sorry everyone, but what area of medicine is your mom and your dad in?
So my mum's a GP, retired, and my father was a GP, but he's a psychiatrist.
Wow, that's even more interesting too, right? And I was thinking you were going to say he's a surgeon, and your mom's a GP, because a lot of the GP have this, they love and they just love, and the surgeons are very charismatic. They own the room, but they can lose their minds in a second if one instrument isn't handed to them right. There's impatient spirit, like, you should know what I want before I ask for it, that kind of thing. So I was just kind of curious along those lines, because sometimes in medicine, there's certain temperaments that go into certain areas of medicine where I want to fix the problem, be done, and move on and not talk to you again. Other people want to hold your hand through the process, so it's just intriguing to me how, and psychiatry is the most intimate of medicine, but a lot of times it just lost its more people, and plus probably him hearing story after story of all these bad things happening, but it had to be hard for him as a psychiatrist, knowing the impact of abuse in the patients and knowing that he's doing the same thing. To his own family.
And it's kind of, talking to my mum, it's kind of heartbreaking, because she had a tough start to life, and then she fell in love with somebody who abused her, and then she had so many chances to where she could have taken a different turn, because her own father had told her multiple times, if things aren't working out, just come back. I'll welcome you back with open arms. And then really, really sad is my sister, when she was, I think, 7 years old, told my grandmother, so my mother's mother, that, look, Dad's hitting her. And she said nothing, done nothing. She just walked away. So, and then I think sometime in the 1980s, one of my dad's sisters and her husband My first cousin remembers this. They found out, and they gave my father a talking to, and he told them that he'd changed his ways. This was back in the 1980s, but obviously he had a second chance as well, because my father had first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth chances. He had so many chances, and he had nearly 50 years of marriage to change and reform. Yeah.
And he was the same with you and your sister, abusive also when you were acting up or anything like that?
No, he's never hit me. He's never hit me, and he's never hit my sister. Never.
Wow,
Never.
that's actually amazing to me, because sometimes when
Never.
you just lose it. And was he the type of guy, like after he abused mom, he would bring her flowers the next day and do nice stuff for her and try to make up for it? Or it was just, that's the way it is?
That he never did anything like that. The next day, it was just a relief for all of us, and it was almost pretending like nothing had happened. And it was hard, because the first time I really talked to my sister about any of this was about 2 years ago. 2 years ago, and all that time, and what brought it to a head was, like, as I said, when I was about 13, we had that big confrontation. I had that big comfort, and after that, neither of us saw any abuse ourselves. But then our mother started having these falls, and she's got osteoporosis, and then she had some quite bad fractures. Fortunately, not kind of hip fractures or anything like that. So she broke both her arms, and she had these bruises. And then kind of alarm bells started ringing in terms of, like, yeah. So, and she always had a story in terms of, like, oh, I was just clumsy, all this kind of stuff. And she's on multiple medications, and she has suffered some cognitive decline. Initially, we thought it was a Alzheimer's, but it turns out that she's had multiple small strokes, if you like. I don't know what the exact technical term is, but she's definitely suffered cognitive decline. For example, just a couple of days ago, I was kind of having a conversation with her, and she knew what day of the week it was, but she wasn't sure what month of the year it was. First of all, she said, "Oh, it's January." It's like, then she said, "Oh, it's March," but she didn't actually know which month it was. So alarm bells started ringing, and both of us were trying to figure out, especially my sister, like, trying to figure out, are these actually accidents, or is our father involved in any way? And it got to the stage where, we talked to her doctor, and just in terms of safeguarding, to let her know about the history, so that he's got some awareness, but we didn't know. And whenever I would bring up, or my sister would bring up, anything negative about my father, she was always super defensive, super defensive. Wouldn't hear a bad word against him. And I think what really, I think it's down to my sister, because I found it so difficult, so difficult, in terms of seeing my parents, because of our history. And in a way, I've kind of maintained a certain amount of distance to protect myself, whereas my sister, she's always stayed vulnerable to them and close to them. I must say, at great personal cost to herself, because they have been abusive towards her. Give you an example, like, she suffered a miscarriage. Fortunately, she's got a really amazing son, my nephew, and she wanted a second, but she suffered a miscarriage. And, like, within a few days of that happening, my father basically tore her to pieces, saying that she's a bad mother. And he threatened to call social services and all this kind of stuff. And, you know, my sister suffers from depression because of our history. And, but I think the main reason that my mum finally found the courage was my sister, however painful it was, she stayed close to both parents, even though they were, my father was abusive. And recently, in one of those, my mum had a moment of clarity, and she said out loud when my sister was there and my brother-in-law was there, she said out loud that I want to leave you. I want to live by myself, away from you, to my father. And then her care...
was there conflict happening at that moment, or was it just saying, hey, look, I'm done? Was there something that brought that to a head that she said that?
I don't know. I think it's just so many things have happened, like you know, like literally like broken bones. You know, she's had multiple fractures, and I think last year in the summer there was a family wedding, and my mum couldn't go because there was this mysterious injury. And yeah, I don't know what brought it to a head, but she actually said it out loud, and that's what unlocked everything. Because my sister and I, we needed her to tell us, to trust us, to say what she actually wanted, because we needed her to tell us that this was happening.
Yeah, and it's amazing she said it in front of so many people, right? Not just privately to him. She said it in front of you all. Plus, maybe you all were a protection to her too. She says that he's not going to do anything if they're here, and that's the hard part about abusive relationships, is that, you know, she's lying to the doctor, she's lying to you, and it just to protect him and protect her too, because you feel like an idiot too if you're getting beaten all the time and you don't want to say, yeah, I'm letting this happen to me, type thing, you know. And so it's a hard thing on a lot of fronts. And then when she said that, how did your dad react?
So again, like he basically gaslights her in terms of he's kind of denies any abuse, basically. Because even the abuse that my sister saw, he basically denies all of it. And the weird thing is, he makes out that he's the victim in all of this. He makes out
very common. That's very common. Like, hey, the only reason I did is because you were doing this, and you know, it's that, you know, it's like you brought this on, you made me do it, type thing, and then make the victim a lot of times feels bad, like, yeah, I shouldn't have said that, I caused it, when they didn't, you know, especially when you're a kid, it has nothing to do with it.
Yeah, because my mother, myself, my sister, we've all blamed ourselves. You know, I've blamed myself, and my sister's blamed herself, and my mum's blamed herself. It doesn't make any sense at all. And it took me a lot of time and counseling to get kind of, not just at an intellectual level, but at an emotional level, to understand that actually it's not my fault. It's not my mother's fault. It's not my sister's fault. And our father is 100% responsible for managing his own feelings and how he behaves. You know, as a grown man, as a grown human of sound mind, he is responsible. He's always responsible.
As we're all responsible for our actions and what we do, right? We have to take responsibility for it. And that's why it's amazing to hear your story, because I see pictures with you and your family and being a loving dad and all these things that you're doing. You're breaking that cycle, right? You're breaking that cycle, because a lot of times, what we were talking right before we started recording is, you know, my dad's side of the family, my dad's stepfather was very abusive, and my uncle went down the abuse road road. And my
Mhm.
dad said, I'll never be like that. And so he broke that cycle in our family, you know,
Yeah,
to stand up and go, that's not the right way. That's not how you treat people. And to see how you are with your family. And frankly, how you are on social media, where you're very kind and respectful and you're saying, hey, you know, you try to have the higher ground, and you come in contact with jerks all the time, and you're trying to like explain something, and they're, you know, they're egging you on, trying to get you riled up.
yeah, yeah.
And yeah, it's just amazing that, and I always think, I wonder what kind of person they are at home with their
Mhm.
family, to be
Yeah,
angry and
yeah.
agitated and arguing, saying what you're doing is wrong, and you know, all these things. Like, how are they with their wife or their kids? Like, they can't
Yeah.
be happy.
No, 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 no. And I kind of think of myself as a first generation father. So there's a book by that name actually that I've been reading, and it's basically, as a father, if you haven't had a role model that you can look to yourself, you kind of have to figure it out from scratch in terms of how what kind of husband should I be, what kind of dad should I be, and trying to figure it out from first principles, and by using and admitting to yourself that you don't know, and getting help, including counseling, and to be honest, like meeting my wife Ruth is literally the single best thing that has ever happened to me, but you know, by a huge margin. You know, she's such a wonderful person, and she's kind of given me the space to work on myself, if that makes sense, because again, on the outside, when we first met, she saw this, like, you know, really happy-go-lucky, carefree, fun person. But then we had our first child, and all of the things in my childhood just came to a head. And it's a book. I understand this now, but it's a book by an author called Philippa Perry, and it's got a long name. It's called let's have a look. It's called The Book You Wish Your Parents Had Read and Your Children Will Be Glad That You Did, by Philippa Perry. It's a bit of a mouthful, but when I first started counseling, because Ruth noticed that we've got this amazing, beautiful baby boy, Eranda is not happy. Why is he not happy? Well, his mood's all over the place. And, you know, we talked about it, and, you know, I decided that to have counseling finally. And one of the key things in that book was, it's really common for people to experience the emotions that they experienced when they were small, when they have children. So if you've had an amazing childhood, a happy childhood, all of those happy memories come back up when you have children yourself. But on the flip side, if you've had a tough childhood, all of those uncomfortable feelings that you've suppressed, all these years, you've just suppressed them, not talked about them, you've internalized them, you blamed yourself, all of that started to kind of bubble up, and it was unbearable. It was unbearable. And I couldn't understand what was going on, because on the surface, I've got this beautiful, wonderful wife. I've got this beautiful, healthy baby boy. Why can't I be happy? And I could see Ruth was so in love with our son. And it was like there was warmth that I couldn't share, because all those feelings were coming up in me which I couldn't deal with, and I felt terrible about.
Yeah, and it's amazing, like going, like when you're talking, I was thinking it when you were saying it, was when you were talking about you guys were the picture, like you see the picture, all the smiles and happiness and going on vacations, and from the outside it looks perfect, and everyone
Yeah.
thinks it's great and everything's good, but you realize it's not good on the
No.
inside. It's not, and so you could look fine, like you see it on Facebook and Twitter, like people post all these fun vacations, they're doing all this stuff, they're in love, they're going to dinner every night, then they're divorced a year later. You're like, what happened? It looked like
Yeah.
everything was great because they're not putting all the fights and all the other problems up there,
Yeah.
and so sometimes just dealing with life and coming to terms with those things, and
Mhm.
a lot, I mean, this is for people listening, what you're doing with your kids, with your family, with your wife, with your husband, with your friends. I mean, this impacts people. Like I'm treating people every day with scars from mom and dad, and what happened when they were a kid, and
Yeah.
it may transition into alcohol, it may transition over into abuse, and maybe overeating and needing cookie every time you're upset. And we
Yeah.
deal with this every day. And when you realize, oh, when I was a kid and I had a bad day, my mom gave me a cookie. So when my kids
Yeah.
having a hard day, I give them a cookie. And that's what
Yeah.
we just keep doing these things that we learned as kids that may be maladaptive.
Yeah. Yeah. Because what I want more than anything is I want this cycle to stop with me, because I'm responsible and I can do it. I can do it. I am doing it. And, the first step, just admitting to yourself that you have a problem, that something's not right and you need help, and being humble enough to ask for help and accept that help, and opening up, because it was a big deal opening up to my wife, because I thought, if she knows this about me, she's going to leave me. If she knows what my life has really been like, I thought, I'm going to lose her. I'm going to lose my family. And, I wanted, I love my wife, and, I didn't want to lose her. But at the same time, I just couldn't bear these feelings that were completely out of place.
Yeah, and the irony is, as soon as you open up and share it, people go, "Oh, I get it. I see where you're coming from," and
Yeah,
it's an acceptance. And then they go, "Now it makes sense why you react this way, why this is going on." But if you never
yeah,
share so many things like that, where people have hidden things going on, and they
yeah,
can't talk about stuff they did wrong, they can't talk about because they go, "People won't love me anymore." But when you're real and authentic and you go, look, here's what I struggle with. This pornography, for instance, is a perfect
yeah,
example. You go, okay, I struggle with that too, and here's what I'm doing about it. Here's how it's affected me. And so people don't realize, because they think they'll be unlovable and unacceptable, but
yeah,
people understand, like, when we do a small group, like you see people say, I'm doing terrible this week, I'm eating cookies every night when I get home. It's like, oh, I was doing that 2 weeks ago too, I had the same and when they hear someone else, you can see the connection with these people, because they're
yeah,
saying, wow, you understand, you're not going to just yell at me and say I'm an idiot, I'm doing the wrong
yeah,
thing. And it's so
yeah,
freeing to come clean on things, to say I'm struggling with alcohol. But when you're the alcoholic drinking in the corner all day, it's such a hard thing. And then you think about your
yeah,
dad too, and like, what a deep down, he has to know what he's doing wrong, and he's going to work like nothing happened the day
mhm,
before. It's just such a hard thing to live with.
yeah, yeah. And kind of, I really hope at some point my father has a moment of clarity and he finds that spark in terms of, okay, so how I've behaved, I've alienated my wife, my children, and just for himself, because for his own peace, because nobody says the things that he says or does the things that he does if they're happy. There's something, there's something deeply, deeply troubling him, that's making him unhappy, and I think it's to do with his childhood or some sort of trauma. But until he can admit that to himself and reach out, I don't think he can change. Yeah.
Yeah, and some people, it's narcissism too, that you can't say that you did something wrong, like, you
Mm,
go the wrong direction and go, yeah, I screwed up, I went the wrong way,
yeah.
because it's insecurity, you know, a lot of
Yeah,
times. So when you're secure in yourself, you say, hey, look, I blew it. Here, I got to come clean. And when someone does that, then you can have forgiveness. It's hard. It's a hard thing when someone doesn't accept responsibility for something, to
it's
have
really
grace
hard.
and forgiveness. It really is.
Yeah, it's really hard because um the amazing thing about my mother and my sister are just how big their hearts are, because my mother has forgiven my father. She has no bad feelings towards him at all. She wants him to be happy. She wants him to be well. And despite the risk to herself, she wants to be available to him. And my sister and I, we've been working really hard to convince her that for your own safety, unless and until he reforms, you need to protect yourself. And again, my sister, somehow she's maintained compassion for my father, and she's never harbored any resentment, whereas I spent years and years and years being angry, like really angry with my father. And it's taken a lot of work to let go of that anger and that resentment, and to actually have compassion for him, and to have the insight that there must be a reason, not a justification, but a reason why he's behaved the way he has, and to have some compassion for that. But also maintaining that, we need to protect our mother.
Yeah, I think you have the responsibility. And I think the thing I love is that you said, look, there was a lot of good days, a lot of good things, a lot of,
Oh yeah.
joy and happiness. He's a funny guy. And so you didn't paint him out to be a total villain in
No.
all areas of his life. And you say, well, he's a doctor, he's helping people, he's doing good things. But you're right, there's something there. It's like, wow, where does that anger come from? Where does that, lack of self-control come from? And it's hard. And I mean, it's so complicated too. And then your mom, may have played a victim role at some point of saying, she's been abused her whole life. And you go, maybe this is just how it is for me. I have people that say that wherever I go, people pick on me. It's like, really?
Yeah.
Like, most people
Yeah.
don't just pick on people. There has to be a reason. But yeah, I've seen that in my practice too, where some people, it's hard. And she doesn't sound like that. I mean, she went through medical school as a
Mm-hmm.
female. I mean, she's got
Yeah.
to be pretty dang tough, and she has to have good perseverance.
Yeah.
And like you said, she has a heart of gold, and she just loves
Yeah.
everyone. And to
Yeah.
have grace and forgiveness, that's probably why she's doing so well. Because when you go through stuff like
Yeah.
that, if you're bitter and resentful and hateful, it does
No.
more damage to you than anyone.
No. Because she's such a calm person. She's such a calm, forgiving, warm person. And like, she's on some psychiatric medication, which she doesn't think she should be on. And so I recently arranged for her to see a psychiatrist. And what the psychiatrist called me afterwards and said, your mom's not depressed. She doesn't have post-traumatic PTSD. She doesn't have depression. She doesn't have anxiety. She shouldn't be on this medication. And she said, I'm so impressed with your mom, because despite what she's been through, she's so calm. She's so calm, and she has this really positive, calm aura or vibe about her. And she's a lovely person. And this is a complete stranger, a psychiatrist who had a consultation with her for maybe an hour and a half, and went away so impressed with the kind of person that my mother is. Yeah.
Well, and that's probably part of it too. When you're a forgiving person and you can't understand someone acting so violently, you think,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. That's probably not going to happen again. Then it happens again. Then you say, okay,
Yeah.
that was the last time. It's not going to happen again. And that's why
Yeah.
abusive relationships so skyrocket. You see it all the time on cops or whatever. The police come and they say, no, he didn't hit me, while your eye's bruised and you're bleeding from your lip. And, I mean,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
got called out because there's something going on. And so even at that point, so many people go back. You go back because that's what you know, and the fear of not having someone or being alone.
Yeah.
uh it's they're so fearful about that they go back into the abusive relationship. And I think it's so important that you're talking about this, because during the lockdowns and COVID, we saw a huge escalation of domestic abuse, alcohol abuse, drug abuse, all these things happening in the homes, and child abuse going up. And you
Yeah.
see people take their frustrations on those they love the most sometimes, and that's the hard
Yeah.
thing, because he couldn't yell at his boss at work maybe, or another doctor there, so he comes home and takes it out on the wife, because
Mhm.
they'll forgive you, and they'll you just go back to the same thing. It's but it's sad that you hurt the people you love the most. That's the hard part about it.
It's really, really hard. It's really, really hard. But that's the thing, kind of like, if fundamentally you don't love yourself, if you don't care about yourself, if you don't love yourself, there's no amount of love you can get from anybody else that can make up for that. So, and you'll end up hurting yourself and people around you. And that's what's, in terms of my mother, I mean, she's just so amazing, because all through these years, she's kept alive that spirit and that hope, and she's kept her positivity, her sense of humor. She's such an amazing person. I mean, she's literally the bravest person I know. And like, yeah, and I'm so proud of her. I'm so proud of her, because like, she's with me right now. We're in the process of getting her own flat, very close to my sister. And so until we buy that place and we refurbish it, she's going to be staying with me and my wife and my two kids. And I'm doing my best to help her be her best self, I guess, because our household is real food, low carb, and all that kind of stuff. And I've been talking to her about intermittent fasting, low carb, all of this kind of stuff. So she's doing intermittent fasting. So she's fasting 14, 15 hours a day. Then she's eating real food. And she's having, I'm trialing out some exogenous ketones with my mum, just to kind of help her out, give her a boost in the morning. So before every meal, she has some exogenous ketones. And we do take her out for treats, but I'm trying to get her around the idea that a treat is something that's made with love. We've taken her to like a local ice cream parlor, which is really high quality, kind of part Persian influence, part Italian influence. And it's really funny, because like she said to me the other day, "Oh, since I've been with you, I haven't had anything sweet." And then I said, "Really?" It's like, okay. So the first time we went to that ice cream parlor, you had chocolate flavor ice cream. The second time we went, you had pistachio ice cream. Then we went to this restaurant and you had a summer berry pudding. And I just listed out, okay, so there's all these really, really sugary, indulgent treats, all made by a professional chef, really high quality. Not something like a Mars bar where you can just go to a petrol station and get it from a vending machine even. So it's really like, again, like she just, and then she thought, yeah, actually, what I just said is just not true at all. So while we have her with us, we're trying to change her habits so that she's got this second chance, and she's 74. She's suffered some cognitive decline, and I want her to have the best possible remainder of her life. And I think she does get it. And kind of, we're looking into this real food delivery service so that she doesn't have to cook, and she can have real whole foods when she's living by herself. And we've already planned a Christmas trip to kind of stay very close to where her new place is going to be, and it's going to be big enough for her to come and stay with us in our holiday home while we're there. So I'm loving it, because in a way I'm getting to know my mother for the first time, because she's always been under that cloud of my father, and this is the first time she's been free, and and she's still there. She's still in there, despite all of the cognitive decline and everything. She's still in there. She's still got that sense of humor.
Does she appreciate the freedom now? Does she feel like, can she verbalize that she feels more calm and at peace with your father not being there?
Yeah, absolutely. And we've just had these amazing conversations, like me and my sister, me and my mother and my sister, and she started counseling. So she started counseling as well, seeing a counselor, a therapist, and it's just so healing for us as a family. And it's just a shame that our father is not part of this, but
has anyone in the family reached out to him or tried to, or is it better just to keep it quiet right now, like let him do his thing? Has he reached out to anyone or reached out to your mom or anything like that since this breakup?
At this stage, he's kind of in denial. So I think we just need to give him some time, and I'll certainly see him myself with my family, and my sister will see him with her family. But we've decided that, well, obviously it's up to her, but we've advised our mother not to have any contact with him, at least for now, which she finds really hard, because she's such a compassionate, kind person.
Well, being married 50 years, it's just hard, you go, that's just
really
the way
hard.
it is. And
really
so,
hard.
it's a hard, that's all understandable. It's a challenge for everyone. It's always uncomfortable and trying to figure out what's the best path forward, and will he get help? Will he, sometimes being alone lets you start thinking like, I got to figure this out. Like now he has no one to abuse, right? Except himself, maybe. So that's a hard thing too, is like trying to figure out, like, why am I violent? Why is this happening? Why is my wife gone? And hopefully it hits it hits something in his brain where he realizes, this is not a good way to be.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give to someone in an abusive home right now, or someone who's in an abusive relationship who's listening right now?
The first most important thing, it's not your fault. It is not your fault. Yeah, because we're all responsible for ourselves, and whoever it is that's abusing you, it's nothing that you've done. It's not your fault. And even if you did do something annoying, that person is still responsible for their own behavior and for managing their own temper, and not processing it in a violent or abusive way. So it's not your fault. That's the first thing. And secondly, it's never too late. It's never too late. And it's hard. I get it. You love that person. It's really, really hard, but you deserve to live a life free from fear and abuse. You deserve that. Everybody deserves that. And just turn whatever thoughts you have where you think, I want a better life for myself without being abused, just focus on those thoughts and be open to that hope that you can take that leap. Because in this kind of situation, there aren't any small steps, right? You have to take that leap, because you have to leave that person, and that's a big disruption. For my mother, for example, she doesn't have her own bank account, she doesn't have a phone, so basically starting from scratch, and it's really hard and it's really scary. But firstly, it's not your fault, and secondly, if there's a part of you that wants a better life for yourself, free from abuse, hold on to that, and there'll be people around you who'll help. And there's so much help externally as well, outside of people that you actually know, that, you know, there's so many charities, there's obviously the authorities themselves. So you can, it's not worth you dying. It's not worth you dying, because some relationships can get so abusive that it's life-threatening. Because my mum, she's really frail. She's 74, and all it would take is for my father to have one of his outbursts, lose control, and she could have a bad fall, really bad head trauma, and that's it. She's gone, right? Or she has a hip fracture and she's dead within a few months, right? So whatever your situation is, if you really want it, there's a way out of it.
Yeah, and I would say if you're the abuser or you're the angry person, like get help. Reach
Get
out.
help. Get help. Yeah.
And people
Yeah,
are going to
because you're
judge
hurting
you,
yourself
and
and people you love.
yeah, it's so important. I mean, this is such a huge, important topic because, you know, being 46 years old, all these things have influenced your relationship your whole life. And so,
Yeah.
if you're in an abusive relationship, look at the kids and what that tells the kids. What kind of
Yeah.
message are we sending about abuse and what's normal in relationships and all these things. And
Yeah.
if you want to destroy a society, destroy the family unit. You
Yeah.
start with that, and the
Yeah.
society is not going to stand. I was just reading. I've been focusing a lot on anxiety and poor sleep and all these things that happen. And
Yeah.
there was a town, Risotto, Rosetto, it's called, in Pennsylvania. In the 50s and 60s, they had the lowest incidence of heart disease. No one under 55 died of a heart attack. The mortality rate for people over 65 was half the population of what it is for the rest of the population of the United States. And so they go,
Right.
let's go there and see, are they vegan? Are they carnivore? What are they doing? And it turned out they were Italian immigrants. Grandma, mom and dad, and the kids, 3 generations lived in the same house.
Wow.
They ate Italian food all the time, right? They worked in the mines. They did all the normal stuff that everyone else did. And when they looked at all the variables, they smoked and they drank and they played cards and they did all these other things. And it
Mhm.
turns out 80% of the people in that town were in social organizations where they could go lawn bowling together. Or they did bocce ball, or they played games at night, or they went to bingo parlor. Whatever they did, they were all very social. And so
Yeah.
when someone's car broke down, everyone would pitch in and go, you could use our car, whatever. And so everyone worked together.
Yeah.
So that was the difference, is having that community and reaching
Mhm.
out and helping others. And over the 70s and 80s, they lost that culture. They became Americanized, and their mortality rates just like everyone else is now. And so you start realizing the impact of community and stress and, what we go through. And a lot of the pathology we deal with now is from childhood, from seeing
Yeah.
abuse and post-traumatic stress syndrome, and chronic insomnia, or needing cookies to get by in life, or alcohol, or whatever it is. So I think it's so important, like you coming forward. I think this episode can save lives, really, because it's
Yeah.
when people realize, I got to make a change. I either have to change, or my partner has to change. We have to figure this out, whether it's counseling. And you going to counseling is a huge thing too. I want
Yeah.
to commend you on that. That shows your
Yeah.
courage. And to
Yeah.
talk about, because a lot of guys say, no, I'm not going to counseling. I don't care. I'm going to be the
Mhm.
way I am. It's like, well, you got to
Yeah. Yeah.
fix that problem, because
Yeah. Yeah.
you as a dad have a responsibility to your kids to fix what the
Well, yeah.
pathology.
100%, Brian, because my boys, I want them to experience a loving childhood and family, and me being authentically myself, Ruth being authentically herself, and to see how a husband should treat his wife with love and respect, right? Because, like I said to you before, meeting my wife, Ruth, is the best thing that has ever happened to me. Like, full stop, end of, the best thing that's ever happened to me, right? And they can see that in how I am with my wife. I mean, they can see that she's the apple of my eye,
Mhm.
and because it's not just about what you say, it's in the everyday. because you've got to live those values, because kids pick up on what they see and what they hear. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I feel the same way. My kids say that, I want to meet someone who's just like my dad, and that's great to hear, or like just like my mom. And you realize, that's important. The message you send, that they see it, they know if you're, kind to each other, and respect. That's a huge important word that you said, showing that respect and not being angry and agitated and fight, like realizing you're on the same team and you're going through this. If you're going to be in a marriage relationship, that's the longest relationship you're going to have, right? And
yeah,
so you better make the best of it and figure out and invest in that, and treat your partner with respect and kindness, and be an example. I mean, that's a huge thing. And I see you as an example on social media, and again, it just shows, what you're doing, and you transformed your body too, and your mind. I see
yeah,
you doing pull-ups with crazy weights on, and you're doing cool
yeah, yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
And
yeah,
like, you transform the outside, but you still have to work on the inside. And that's the big message, I think, is that we can't just eat low carb and you lose a few pounds and your life's great. You got to work on those hard things, those childhood things, those
yeah,
relationship problems and all that. It's not all fun and games, but
yeah,
it can't all be work either. It has to be fun and games. You have to enjoy your partner and have fun and enjoy and laugh, and just be sometimes, and not be accomplishing something. I think that's a lesson that a lot of us can learn.
exactly, exactly. And like, because whatever you believe, as far as we actually know, you just have this one life, right? Because people are afraid. You believe in God, Brian, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sort of, you're a church going man. I go to church even though I'm a Buddhist. I go because it was my idea. My older son is christened in church, and my younger son is going to get christened in a few weeks' time. And we actively go to church on Sundays. And whatever you believe, as far as we know, we just have this one chance with this one life. And I think it's really important that we make the best of it. And again, like, for people who are in a difficult spot right now, all it takes is just that spark of wanting something better and having hope for a better future. But you actually have to do something, because all of your power, all of your agency is always going to be in the present moment. And life's never going to get to that perfect time for you to make a change. You have to, all of your power agency is right now. So if you want your life to be better, just start now.
Man, that's great advice. That's great advice. And I have to ask you, what's life's best medicine for you? I know you've been asked this question before, and we'll see what we'll see what you said last time, but things, it may change over time, right?
Yeah, it basically boils down to love. First and foremost, love for yourself and acceptance of yourself without judgment. And without that, you can't really truly love other people if it doesn't start from a place of self-love and self-acceptance and not judging yourself. So, and that takes a certain level of humility. Because you've got to admit to yourself when you're not happy, when you've done something wrong, when you've said something wrong. So if you can't admit, you have to be honest with yourself. Because like, the easiest thing to do is to lie to yourself. That's the easiest thing to do, right? It protects your ego, but you've got to be honest with and open with yourself before you can change. And people can change. So life's best medicine, I think, it's basically self-knowledge and acceptance without judgment, and love.
Man, I love it. I love it. And that's so important. And loving yourself enough not to accept yourself where you are, accept yourself where you are, but to say, hey, I'm going to make it better next week.
Yeah.
I have a lady I just talked to that I'm consulting with, and a lot of childhood scars. And, her mom would always say, you're too fat, you're this, you're not doing this right. And she went through all these things. And so she said, I went months and months without even looking at myself in the mirror, because every time I did, I would criticize, hey, you should lose weight. You have stretch marks. You have the, and then she said, all of a sudden I'm looking in the mirror again. And I said, what changed? And she said, instead of being negative towards myself and looking at all my flaws, I have compassion for myself. Like if someone would have said, hey, you're trying hard, you're not where you want to be yet, but just keep going. You're going to be fine. It's going to work out. Just that the importance of encouragement and the importance of, not talking negative to yourself all the time and say, you're going to blow it. You can't do anything right. And because we believe it and your body believes that. So sometimes just saying, okay, you got this, is you're not where you want to be. You got 30 pounds to lose. Okay, let's lose 1 pound first and see where we go from here, and go on that journey, and not just say, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing that's not working. And so, I think this is such an important episode. I really appreciate you coming out and talking about it. I really appreciate you reaching out to me. And when I read your text, I was like, wow, this is something. I mean, people need to hear this story. So thank you for your courage. And I think you adopted your mom's compassion and courage and forgiveness and all these great things, and your sister, how you speak so highly of her. And, it's amazing, how we can all help each other through this, and being and providing a place for your mom to get out, who knows chapter 2 with dad coming around. You never know how everything works out. And all you could do is be kind. And I hope any of your detractors on Twitter listen to this story and understand that the person that they attack sometimes, and that they may not understand. It's like, these are all people. I think about it too. It's like, these are all people that want to live their life and go home and be happy and have contentment and joy and all that. So everyone, this is gold standard life lessons here. And Eranda, thank you so much for coming and sharing all this. And I think really do. I'm impressed that this will definitely help people, like, just to reassess things in life, and keep doing what you're doing. And thanks for joining me. I know it's late for you over there. But
it's the afternoon over there, Brian.
Yeah, it's 3 p.m. here.
Right. Cool.
How far ahead of you are me?
It's about 11:10 at night.
Oh my goodness. Go to bed, man. Go to bed. So thank you.
Definitely.
And everyone, listen to this. Be kind to yourself, be kind to others, keep doing what you're doing, and find life's best medicine for you.
Brilliant. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you for listening to this episode. We greatly appreciate your support. We would greatly appreciate a positive thumbs up on all of the platforms like iTunes and Spotify, or wherever you're listening. And we just thank you for our Patreon supporters. We greatly appreciate your help in getting this message out. We think there's a lot of important information, and hopefully this helps you. Have a great day, and thank you for listening, and thank you for your support.